Are you a runner who feels held back by fear? Whether it's fear of failure, an injury, or simply not being good enough. You're not alone. In this training, we'll explore powerful strategies to conquer those fears and unlock your true potential in your running journey. Get ready to transform your mindset and reach peak performance like never before. Welcome to episode 264 on the Healthy Runner Podcast, where we help you get stronger, run faster, and enjoy lifelong injury-free running. Today's guest is coming back on the show for an encore performance. Rebbeca Doring is not only an ultra runner herself, but she is also an inner critic coach, a meditation teacher, and chromatic yoga teacher, and the host of the Inner Critic Freedom Podcast, helping wellness professionals and enthusiasts alike rise above imposter syndrome. We all have that, don't we? She specializes in making intangible concepts like self-compassion and discovering your personal vision tangible through a mindful, actionable, step-by-step approach. We struggle with putting ourselves out there and all of the feelings that we get from that protective response. So our, nervous system kicking in and maybe your heart rate's increasing, right? Like everyone could kind of relate to this at the start of a race. You go out too hot, you're running too fast because now your sympathetic nervous system has kicked in out of maybe fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because you think you need to run from a bear, but no, you're just literally running like your local half marathon, right? Or you're running
Right.
this first marathon, or you've put this big scary goal out there and you're trying to get a PR and you want to be able to have this as your fastest race ever. You've put in like the training and now you have these expectations that are kind of coming up. And this fear can kind of stop us in our tracks sometimes, right?
Right. Yeah. And the fear will manifest, like you were saying, in the physical way in the middle of the race. But I've also found when that fear comes up, I all of a sudden get really afraid of falling. And I know that in that moment when I'm so afraid of falling, and then I start thinking, oh God, what if I fall? What if I fall? What if I fall? I can't break my ankle. Then I won't be able to run this race. Or I'm in the race and what if I fall and then I'll break my ankle and I won't be able to finish. And we start going down the rabbit hole of all the negative worst case scenarios. And when we start focusing on that, of course, that affects our performance. That affects when we're thinking something, it changes how we feel. And how we feel changes our posture, changes how we show up, changes how we're able to move our muscles, how we're able to move. I know for me with trail running, the fastest way to get yourself to fall is to keep thinking, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. It's just bringing your attention to falling. And we're just visualizing ourselves falling. We're basically manifesting a fall. And also thinking about it, like if you tell yourself, I don't want to fall, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall, what happens to your body? Like right now, as I'm telling you this, my shoulders are hiked up near my ears, my whole body feels tense. We start pulling away versus when we go into a trust. So something I tell myself in the middle of a race is I trust my body, I trust the land, I trust myself. And I just repeat that word. I repeat those words and allows my body to soften and go into the movement and do what I was trained to do and just release into the training and allow ourselves to shift to what we do want. So that's like the biggest thing that comes up when fear arises. Our brains will go to everything we don't want, right? Our own perceived inadequacies, insecurities, worst case scenarios, and that affects everything.
Okay. So what you're mentioning there is like the internal struggles, right? Like you mentioned before, there's external, internal, and okay, gotcha. And those will affect how we perform, whether it is the external that our body, the heart rate's increasing, you're sweating, you're getting out of breath, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm just going to like not be able to finish this race, or I'm not going to be able to maintain this pace. And I guess that would be like more internal, right? You're questioning, can I actually maintain this pace for the whole race? Because my breathing is starting to get heavy right now. And
Yes.
okay. All right. I'm definitely relating to this. So why do you think runners specifically may struggle with fear?
Well, I think anytime we strive for something, fear comes up. And as runners, we are pushing the boundaries and discovering what we're capable of every year, right? I think we all have this desire to keep growing as a runner, whether that means just being able to keep running as life goes on, as we age, or at being wanting to PR, wanting to try new distances, new races, new speeds, whatever it is. So we have this desire to keep pushing the boundaries of what we currently think is possible. I know for me that has become one of the most addicting things about running is like, wait a second, I didn't think that was possible and I just did that. What else is possible?
Right.
So as we're expanding the boundaries of what we think is possible, there's several things at play here. There's this book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I don't know if you've read it.
I have not, but thank you for
Oh,
the recommendation.
it's a great one. I've
Okay.
read it multiple times. I will continue reading it. It's such a great read. But in it, he talks about that sometimes the scariest thing is actually achieving our goals, is actually like reaching success, is actually having joy, because joy is perhaps the most vulnerable emotion, right? As soon as good things happen, we immediately start thinking, what bad thing is coming now? Or we wait for the shoe to drop. And I find that with like peak performance, sometimes it's like, well, in the back of my mind, yeah, I really want a PR, but then what? Like, can I even push for a new PR? Maybe this will be my peak forever, and I don't want to then go downhill, right? There's a whole other there's a whole other rabbit hole we could go down with the fear of actually reaching our peak performance and allowing ourselves to have that joy. And so I find that this comes up a lot with running. I see it in my friends. I've felt it myself. It's almost like when you finally get to that race that you've been working towards, that you care so much about and you really want it. Whether or not you're like really owning the fact that you want it, deep down you know you want it. You want to cross the finish line at a specific time or whatever it is. Then all of a sudden it gets scary. It's almost like, well, what if I don't get it? And also, what if I do? And we hit this, what Gay Hendricks in that book refers to as the upper limit problem. It's like we hit our personal capacity of what we think we can have, the amount of joy that we can have, the amount of success we can have, the amount of fitness or health we can have. And once we hit our personal capacity, it brings up fear. But the beautiful thing about it is that we get to expand that capacity every year of our lives. And I think that's what we do as runners. We expand our capacity every year, every month, every time we run, we're expanding our capacity. And if we can bring our mindset into that as well, in addition to the physical aspects and the training aspects and all the scientific parts of it, but also get our brains behind, our minds behind allowing ourselves to have more success, have more joy, have more health, more fitness, more love, that is when we can truly thrive.
And this makes me think about a recent conversation I had with actually our mutual friend, Carolyn Coffin, who originally introduced me to you when you were
Yeah.
on her podcast, The Inspire Souls. But we have recently recorded an episode about kind of running over 40 and like, can you get faster? As you continue running in your 40s. And we talked about the scenario of that, cross country high school athlete or collegiate runner, and now they're in their 40s, maybe for them who have been like training really hard for 20 years, maybe, yeah, they will slow down, right?
Mm,
But what I'm hearing from you is that maybe they need to expand, right?
mm,
Their goals or different goals. Or is there a different way to appreciate running
yeah.
besides getting a personal best, right? Or time on the clock? Is it, setting the goal of being able to run injury free year round, or being
Mm,
able to actually appreciate. And I need to give you a shout out because you have helped me in this area appreciate more the joys of running and nature,
mm,
and using it as like a moving meditation and to calm my brain, and like the other aspects of running, and
yeah.
seeing joys in that. Is what I'm hearing from you, in kind of expanding some of that goals that we do have. But yeah, I do agree that runners tend to be goal oriented, and we do like to strive to continually challenge ourselves, right? And do hard things. And many parents, who maybe go through the young child, years, it's a struggle for us. And sometimes people's, health and fitness goals take a backseat because now you're like literally focusing on another human being, right? And they're like your
Sure.
world, and you're making sure that they're tended to. And sometimes people, right, put their own personal goals aside, and then they, kids get a little older, they're like off to school now, and now, we get people getting back into running, and they're like, well, let me see if I can do this, or can I run a half marathon? Can I
Mm-hmm.
run a marathon? And yeah, it is something that I think, it's more that we set those goals. We want to be lifelong learners, which is awesome, and I love that. But it also can tend to, if I think we're too concrete in our thinking, can lead to struggling with like fear, right?
Yeah.
And this coming up. Okay.
Yeah, well, and this brings to a great point, because I think the underlying um, message I have to share anyway, and the message that I've received through my own journey through this and through helping many other people through this, is that when the fear comes up, we feel like something has gone wrong, or we feel like it actually is a sign from our bodies or the universe or the life or itself saying we shouldn't go after this goal, or we shouldn't do this, or maybe I can't do this. We start to believe those stories that come up in our minds, or we just feel like the fear is saying that something has gone wrong. But what, in my experience, the way I see it is actually it says, no, 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 you're exactly where you need to be. It's a sign that you are stepping outside of your comfort zone and you are stretching your capacity for joy, for success, for abundance, for love, for fitness, for health. And you are expanding what is currently possible for you. So, yeah, fear is very normal to come up. Doubt is very normal to come up. It's a sign that you're actually exactly in the right place. And for me, I feel a softening when I remind myself of that, because that fear comes up, I'm like, oh God. And then I'm just like, wait, no, this is a good thing. This means I'm exactly in the right place. This means I'm in the growth zone. I'm not in the comfort zone. And that's where I want to be. So let me tell myself I'm totally normal for thinking and feeling this way. And let me show up for my run and enjoy it.
I love it. I'm in the growth zone. So I'm going to think about that next time that
Mm.
fear pops up, that I'm in the growth zone. And
Hmm.
you might have answered this already, but what do you feel like is the root cause of fear?
Mm. Yeah, I would say we probably did cover it, but just to like put it into concrete, I think the root cause is ultimately our brains trying to protect us from experiencing some type of pain, some sort of thing that we might subconsciously believe will happen, something bad that will happen, either if we do get success and achieve our goal, or if we don't. And so in like the mindset work, if anyone's listening that's interested in journaling or self exploration, you could ask yourself, like, bring pen to paper and just ask yourself, like, what would it mean for me to actually achieve this? Or like, are there any bad things that I imagine could happen if I achieved this? Or what bad thing am I afraid of happening if I don't achieve this? Just to get curious about what might be coming up. Because a lot of the time, once we hear it, once we see it, once we write it down, it can actually be kind of released, because it's like, oh, that's so actually not true. That doesn't even apply. And I totally know how to move through that. Um, so the root cause is our brain has something tied to achieving or not achieving this goal. But also, most importantly, it's just the fact of expanding. You are expanding your capacity for what you have and what you can do right now. And it's very normal to experience that fear. And the more we can uh, shift out of resisting it and then find the joy within it, then the quicker we can expand that capacity and allow ourselves to just do what we're trained to do, and trust the training and experience the joy of running.
So it sounds like journaling can be an effective tool and strategy to overcome some of this fear, getting down to the root causes of, why we're having this fear. And I actually recently talked with Jason Fitzgerald about this on a recent episode. And he talked about kind of the benefits of journaling. And I believe we even spoke about that in our meditation for running episode as well. And I found that extremely helpful. And I started implementing journaling since around our chat 2 years ago. And every,
Yay.
day I start my day journaling and finish my day with journaling. And then I do some of your guided meditations. So it kind of helps shut my brain down before sleep so I can get some deeper, more restful sleep. So that's been extremely helpful. But what are some other ways or strategies that we can overcome fear as runners?
Sure. So there's a couple that I'll kind of walk you through, but one, I'll just kind of piggyback on what I was just sharing. So when fear arises, telling ourselves that it's normal and okay is really important because, of course, when we're afraid, we're not feeling safe. And the sooner we can anchor into a feeling of safety and create like a mental sense of safety, we can then relax and then go back into our training, our running, right? And speaking to, how it affects our bodies physiologically when we're in fear, heart races, all of that. So the sooner we can just allow our bodies to do what they're designed to do is great. So reminding ourselves, this is normal, this is okay, this is safe, this means I'm in the growth zone can be really helpful. But another way to look at it is I love to think about the difference between fear and excitement. And they're like energetically and also from a nervous system perspective, they can be somewhat similar in an experience, the way we feel in our bodies. But the mind and what we're focusing on is different. So if we think about like excitement, if I'm excited to go on a vacation, there's anticipation, right? We're looking at all the things we're excited to experience. We're thinking about the food we're going to eat. We're planning the places we're going to visit. We're imagining how beautiful it's going to be. We keep imagining the experience and the good experiences. Versus fear is we think about the worst case scenarios and our own potential inadequacies. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I can't handle it? What if I blow out too early? What if I go out too strong? What if I roll an ankle, right? All of those stories is we're thinking about the worst case scenarios, but especially our own particular inadequacies. So just being aware of that, we can shift from fear to excitement. And it's a lot easier of a shift to go from fear to excitement versus like fear to peace or fear to relaxation, right? That's a totally different sensation in the body. So just starting to think, okay, if you feel the fear coming up about a race, then shift to what are you excited about? What are you looking forward to? What experiences in the race are you like anticipating and almost like practice anticipating it like you're getting ready to go on a vacation?
I love it. So getting aware that this fear, could it actually be excitement? And kind of shifting the thought process there.
Yeah, well, and it's not necessarily saying like, could it be excitement, but you can change it into excitement just by changing what you're thinking about, just by
More the
focusing on
positive.
different things. Yeah.
Okay.
And our brains will always answer questions. This is like a little brain hack. So our brains just tend to automatically ask the wrong questions, like, what if I fail? What if I fall? What if bad things happen? And we'll always answer it. So there will always be an answer. And usually it just makes us feel worse. We think about all the worst case scenarios, all the evidence stacking up against us. But if we consciously and intentionally ask better questions, our brains will jump to help and answer just in the same way. So if we start saying, what am I looking forward to? Well, now your brain is getting to work to brainstorm like, what am I looking forward to? Oh, well, the aid stations are fun and being with my friends are fun. And, we start thinking about all the things that we're actually looking forward to. And that can be a useful way to shift from fear to excitement, especially in like a race setting or an event kind of setting. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So we need to ask better questions is like a strategy in thinking about what are we looking forward to. And I think your example was like spot on, that it reveals that you're a trail runner versus like a road runner, because a road runner is like, I am not looking forward to the aid station because they're always crowded. I can never get in and out quickly. And, there's always someone who's like blocking your pathway or something, or right. But I hear, at ultras and trail races, Coach Kat talks about this all the time, that, this is like where the fun is. And you do really look forward to those aid stations,
Yeah.
and, recharging, and getting some like real food, as opposed to
Yeah.
us, like, just eating gels and fake food.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so funny. It's so true. Yeah. The aid stations are hard to leave. That's actually the hardest part for trail running, is like, you need to make sure you don't stay there, because you're going to want to stay there. Yeah.
So
So,
besides asking better questions, is
yeah.
there other ways or
Yeah.
strategies that we can kind of help with some of this fear?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one that I actually was just recording on my podcast. Was just talking about this with goals, which will be episode 230 on the Inner Critic Freedom Podcast. So if you're listening to this, you can go and follow up and get a lot more in detail on this topic. But there's just to make it short, but to explain it, that there's a yoga philosophy that I love to use in any habit and in goals that helps us release the fear, which is it's called abhyasa and vairagya. And abhyasa is about consistent action, consistent effort. That's showing up and running, showing up for our training, doing all the things we do to support ourselves in running. And then vairagya is releasing the attachment to the results. So just, I'm going to use, we'll use running. So in the context of running, if you're working towards a race, and this is the race that you really, really want, and it's bringing up a lot of fear, when we're attached to the results, we might be constantly thinking about the results every time we run. And so there might be a feeling of, is it working? Am I getting stronger? Am I pushing too far? We're just constantly not present, attached to the outcome, the results that we want. Versus Vairagya is about letting go of that attachment to the results, getting present to the here and the now, and learning to enjoy the lifestyle that we are living that will get us to the results. So, I mean, a even simpler analogy is just thinking about summiting a mountain. If you want to go for a hike, it would be like focusing on every step is, have I summited yet? Have I summited yet? Have I summited yet? Is it working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Will I get there? Versus actually enjoying the hike, looking around you and seeing all the views, feeling your body with each step, learning to enjoy and appreciate the discomfort that arises in the power in your body and the fatigue and all of the experiences. And I find that this is a huge, huge, beautiful tool in surrendering and letting go of the fear, because then we're able to just be present with our bodies, and kind of coming back to what you were sharing, that you're enjoying your running more in more of a moving meditation experience. Like, this is kind of where we tap into that place, because when we're present and curious, then fear can be there, but it's not stopping us. It's just another thing to notice, and it kind of passes. And then we can experience the actual joy of movement, right? We love running, even if it might, suck sometimes, or a lot of the time, we still enjoy that. And when we bring our minds to the present moment to actually get to know it and explore it and enjoy it even more, like, I mean, that's how I've been able to run for 21 hours straight and have an experience within that.
Yeah, and I see that a lot in like the injured runners, maybe that I'm working with personally, who are struggling with IT band syndrome, hamstring pain, Achilles pain, where they have this fear that, they probably took off of running for weeks, months, and now we're working on like getting back into running.
Mm.
And every single run or every single step, they might be commenting in final surge. And I could see that there is fear, because a lot of their comments are kind of like they're waiting for the next shoe to drop, right? They're waiting for that pain to return. They're waiting to not be able to run, or they're just like super hyper focused on it. And I find myself, coaching them very often of, let's just focus on the process, focus on the habit of getting out the door and running, and focusing on the joy that running brings you, and what is your why, and why are you running to begin with, right? It's not to just go out and do something and not have Achilles pain or hamstring pain, but there's an underlying why. And I find myself saying that a lot, and I'm just thinking about this as you were talking right now, that I think a lot of times we can tie ourselves to the outcome. So in that instance, it might be running without pain or running injury free. But then we also see this from like the performance side of things, where someone's out there for their their easy run during the week, and they're saying, I got this big half marathon goal, and how am I going to run an 8-minute, a 9-minute, minute per mile in the race? But my run on a random Tuesday, I felt terrible running at a 10-minute pace. How am I going to be able to actually do this marathon at 8? And I see a lot of runners kind of hyper focus in that like one run, that felt crappy, or, the majority of the runs are not at that pace, or just like the misconception of, all right, if you have a goal pace, then all of your runs should be run at that goal pace, as opposed to trusting the process and knowing that, yes, on race day, you will be able to kind of elevate your performance and be able to run faster. So those are just like 3 examples, I guess, that I see that in the running community quite often, is that we do attach ourselves to the results or the outcome. And from what you're saying, is that actually really is leading into you maybe limiting yourself and being more fearful to achieve greater results or get to the next level in your running journey.
Yeah, because I mean, it makes sense that we do this, of course, because we set a goal and that goal has results tied into it. So of course, that's what we're doing. But at the end of the day, it ends up adding so much pressure to every run. And then we get that kind of that underlying attachment that I was saying about the journaling question of like, if I achieve this, then that will mean X. And if I don't achieve this, then that will mean X. And then every run is about, will this work or will this not? And we're not present anymore. And we've sabotaged the joy. And there is so much joy to experience. And if we were to allow ourselves to unattach from the results, we set the results, they're there, we're working towards them, but now we're not focusing on them, attached to it every single time we go out and run. Instead, we just focus on today's running plan. What is, okay, easy run. All right, great. How can I enjoy this easy run? How can I go into this experience even more? How can I enjoy the discomfort? Maybe today is just one of those days where it's just not feeling good, but how can I even enjoy that, knowing that that's building mental resilience and being present with that experience? And if we do that, then we keep showing up and we keep giving ourselves the support we need to show up for that one run. But it also, a really magical thing that happens is it feels better because we've created this really positive experience, and then we want to keep showing up, and then we want to keep taking care of ourselves. So sometimes that means we need to push a little harder. Sometimes that means we need to take a rest day when we really don't want to, or we're afraid to take a rest day, or whatever the stories are, or whatever the situation is. But we're more willing and likely to take care of ourselves for that, which then makes the results that we want inevitable.
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love it. So besides, let's see, we've talked about journaling so far. We talked about having an awareness, asking better questions and what we're fearful of or why we're setting goals. We talked about not being as attached to the results and focusing more on being present and the process. Any other strategies or tips that you can offer our audience?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do personally, and I do this in training runs, I do this in races, is kind of ties to that book, the Big Leap, um, is telling myself it's safe to expand and it's safe to rise, and it's safe for me to keep expanding in success and health and fitness and love and abundance, all the things. Because something I think we can all relate sometimes when one area of our lives is going really well, like maybe running is going so well. I know I've felt this way. Sometimes it feels like running is the only thing I'm succeeding at and everything else is crumbling around me, or vice versa. So it feels sometimes I might get a little fearful. If running is feeling so good, I might be like, oh God, what if something else starts to go wrong? Or I start to feel like, wait, I'm just keep enjoying running so much. I'm getting fitter and I'm getting stronger and I'm getting healthier. Where's the next shoe going to drop? That's when I start telling myself it is safe to rise. It is safe to expand. It is safe to expand in fitness, in health, and success every day. And there's a little affirmation that Gay Hendricks talks about in his book that I repeat to myself, and I've done it in my races. Like when I start to notice, oh no, what if I start falling and I start thinking about all the worst case scenarios? I then tell myself it is safe, or I expand in success, in love, in health, in fitness every day. And I inspire those around me to do the same. And I repeat that over and over again. And for me, it's very settling. It's like, oh yeah, okay. I'm allowed I'm allowed to have this. I'm allowed to receive this. I'm allowed to give this to myself. And when I do, I inspire people around me. I'm not outshining anyone, or, there's many other stories that we might have tied into that, but I get to have this. So like literally telling yourself, it's okay for you to achieve this. Like it's okay for you to have this. It's okay for you to let yourself enjoy this. And I personally find that my performance is better and I'm less prone to injury. Like sometimes an injury pops up when I was really afraid of having it work out. And that was kind of my upper limit problem of, nope, I didn't really allow myself to have this fully, if that
Mhm.
makes any sense.
Yeah. And so I'm hearing positive affirmations, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just being intentional with that and telling yourself that. So whether you're journaling it, whether you're using it as like a mantra that you are
Mm-hmm.
repeating during a run, during a training run, during a race, that those affirmations can help our brains essentially like shut down fear is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It gives something else to anchor towards. And then as we're telling ourselves those things, especially if you find an affirmation that does create like a shift in you, like you feel it, where it's like, oh yeah, that feels different. When you find one of those, and if you really repeat that every time you run, you are rewiring your brain and you are making it so that you get to live your life in the way that you want to. And fear is not in the driver's seat anymore. It's just in the passenger seat. You're the one who's deciding what you get to have in your life.
I love that. And yeah, I think for anyone who is setting big goals for themselves, whether it's career goals. And since the last time that we had spoke, I kind of made a big career shift and really, doubled down with what I'm doing today in serving the running community and kind of, yeah, I guess, fully retiring at age 43 from full-time
Woohoo!
faculty position. And it actually reminded me a lot of your journey and story of kind of being a pastry chef and like what you do. But there was a lot of fear associated with that.
Mm.
And, one of the things that really did help me and was being intentional and journaling every single day and using positive affirmations that reminded me of why I'm doing this
Yeah.
and how this is going to fill my cup, right? And feel like it is something that is almost like my calling, right? Like this is number one, what I'm passionate about, but then I'm serving and helping others in a way that I wouldn't be able to if a lot of my time and attention was dedicated to, teaching DPT students. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think this is very resonating from like career wise, but then also I think for us as runners, we can apply that to that big, scary running goal, whether it is your first, right, like race at a distance or your first ultra or getting a PR, a PB. And I think grounding yourself and
Mm.
reminding yourself with these positive affirmations, like Rebecca said, it does help rewire the brain and can shut down a lot of those fears. So as we're kind of, rounding out, heading into the final stretch here, if you could change one thing about the misconception of overcoming fear to reach peak performance, what would that be?
Mm. I would say that something we tend to believe is that we can't feel better until our circumstances have changed. Right? We feel like we can't feel like if fear is here or doubt is here or we imagine that once we achieve this goal, then we'll be able to feel better. Like once we heal this injury, then I'll be able to be confident in my body. Then I'll be able to enjoy my body. Then life will be better there than it is here. Is that so we tend to believe that we can't feel the way that we want to feel until the circumstance has changed. And the truth of the matter is, if we flip that and we work on our mind and we work on thinking better thoughts, asking better questions, generating the desired feelings that we want to feel now, practicing feeling like a strong, confident runner now, the practicing feeling like a runner. That's how I've gotten to where I am today. I did not believe I could be a runner. And it wasn't me becoming a runner to then believe that I could be a runner. It was me believing I could be a runner first. And then my circumstances changed. So when fear arises, just because it's there, it doesn't mean that you have to wait for it to go away in order for you to feel good again. Doesn't mean you have to wait for you to achieve that goal in order to feel good. You get to decide how you want to feel today and let fear be there and show up anyway and get back to why you're really there. Be present with it and think about how you want to feel today. Like even just that simple question can be really helpful. How do I want to feel during this run? How do I want to feel during the day today? And that can be a simple shift to make us realize, oh, wait a second, I get to have that now. I don't have to wait for my circumstances to change.
Yes. And I think when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, it's really hard to do that.
Mm.
And we do need to be intentional and we do need to set time aside, right? That we work on these strategies. And
Sure.
because we're all so busy. And if we don't set that time aside, then we can't like ground ourselves again and remind ourselves that, yes, we are in control of how we can feel on any given day, whether it's with running, work, life, family, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we can have some sense of control in how we react during the day and set out like specific intentions. I love it. I love it. You shared a lot of great insights today that I really enjoyed personally, and I'm sure many people will enjoy as well. Is there anything that you wanted to touch upon today that you think that we haven't talked about that you think would be helpful for our Healthy Runner audience?
That's a good question. We have come all around that. I guess I will just touch on that. Something that you just shared there is a common feeling that comes up when we talk about this kind of work, mindset work, like choosing to feel better, choosing to think about things differently, asking better questions, is that it's hard. And it can be like almost a rebuttal a little bit like, oh, yeah, but that's so hard. It's so hard to practice gratitude when I'm so stressed and I'm just trying to get through the day. It's so hard to do these things. And I always remind myself and I remind my clients is it hard now? And it is. Being stressed and being overwhelmed is hard. So it's hard either way. And when we do those hard things, even if it's just 30 seconds, if we take 30 seconds to think a different thought, that can have a profound effect on the rest of your day. And it might feel so hard to stop. It might feel like you're trying to stop, I don't know, a train from going and get it to a halt just to like stop the momentum of your day, just to pause and ask yourself a better question. Focus on something differently, asking yourself, how do I want to feel? Be present. But that kind of hard makes life so much easier. It's like when we avoid the hard for the good of ourselves, then everything is hard. When we do the hard things intentionally, then everything gets easier.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, when we do the hard things intentionally, everything gets easier. Yeah, that's fantastic. So for you guys listening to this right now, just to kind of recap what Rebecca shared with us today is we talked about what fear is. We talked about how does fear affect our running performance. We talked about why runners struggle with fear. And it is, mainly because, it's a positive thing that we have a growth mindset. We talked about the root causes of fear and talked about some internal, external ways that fear can manifest, and then some strategies on how we can overcome fear as a runner, and some misconceptions and some other goodness that Rebecca shared. And this was super informative. I knew this was going to be a very insightful conversation. I have been following your work since our chat 2 years ago. A lot of your free meditations that you have helped me out greatly. And it is just so nice to be able to talk to you live, since I have listened to many of your podcast episodes and your meditations. So thank you for taking time out of your busy day to help our healthy runner community.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so wonderful to come and, talk to my people, my fellow runners. And I'm so grateful for your podcast. I'm so happy for you that you are diving into this work and have retired your other job, because you are just doing such an amazing job. And we're all so lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. And where can our healthy runner community connect with you?
So, I mean, the easiest way, since you're listening to a podcast, would be following my podcast, Inner Critic Freedom. And like I mentioned, episode 230 will tie into what we kind of talked about today, especially on like the consistency piece of a goal and learning to enjoy the lifestyle of it without the results. But otherwise, you can find me on Instagram at Rebbeca Doring. You can also find me on my website, which is deeprootedbliss.com. And there you can find all of my offers, the free meditations, as you were describing. You just go to deeprootedbliss.com/meditate. You can find some of those resources there as well.
Yeah, and they're fantastic guys. So I would highly recommend, and you get on Rebecca's newsletter, sends out great emails as well. And when new offerings do come out. So this episode was all about overcoming fear to kind of reach peak performance. And if you like this, then you will surely love learning about meditation for running with Rebecca. So just queue up episode 151 on the Healthy Runner podcast. And if you're watching this in YouTube right now, then just click the video that I have for you next. As always, let's continue to grow a strong mind, a strong body, and just keep running. Until next time.